Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news from the WordPress community. Now, welcome your hosts, David Wormsley and Nathan Wrigley.
Hello there and welcome to the WP Builds podcast. This is episode number 209, entitled Getting Feedback About Your WordPress Product. It was published on Thursday the 10th of December 2020. My name's Nathan Wrigley, and just a couple of quick things before we begin. Head over to our website, wpbuilds.com, and there you will find all of the content that we produce each and every week. There's quite a lot of it. If you'd like to stay in touch with what we do, then head over to wpbuilds.com/subscribe. You'll find that in the menu at the top. That link will take you to a page where you can join our Facebook group of over 2,700 very friendly and polite WordPressers. You can also sign up to a couple of email lists to be alerted as to when we produce the podcast on a Thursday. And also we do a live version of the weekly WordPress news. We're calling it This Week in WordPress. That comes out on a Tuesday. So that's wpbuilds.com/subscribe. We've got a deals page at wpbuilds.com/deals. And if you'd like to advertise on WP Builds, then go to wpbuilds.com/advertise and get your product or service in front of a wider audience, a WordPress specific audience, a bit like these guys did. Do you want to set up your A/B split tests in record time, like in a couple of minutes? Well, use A/B split test. You can use your existing pages and test anything against anything else: buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. And the best part is, it works with Elementor, Beaver Builder, and the WordPress block editor. You can check it out and get a free demo at absplittest.com. So, episode number 209, I said it was entitled Getting Feedback About Your WordPress Product. Today we're chatting with James Kemp, who is the developer behind Iconic WP. That's a suite of plugins to enable you to enhance your WooCommerce website. But that's not what we talk about primarily today. Today we're talking about another plugin which he's got called Simple Feature Requests. It's a WordPress plugin to enable you to get feature requests about any product or service that you might have online. You've seen this kind of thing with SaaS apps before. You can look at a roadmap of different features that have been requested. You can vote things up and down. You can make comments and so on. It's really nice, and the fact that it's done in WordPress means that it's really easy for you guys to get into straight away. There's a lightweight free version and there's also a pro version. I've actually used it, which is why I got in touch with James. I think I was using his support to begin with and then decided that it would be a nice topic for the podcast. Anyway, if you've got a client that would like to gain product feedback, or perhaps you've got a product yourself or a plugin yourself, or you've got hosting or whatever it might be, this might be a nice WordPress solution just for that. Those of you that decide to look at the pro version, you might be interested to know that James has offered the WP Builds listeners a 10% off voucher. Use coupon code WPBuilds10, that's lowercase WPBuilds10. Get yourself 10% off the pro version of Simple Feature Requests. We didn't get into a conversation about how long that code's going to last, but surely it will last for a few weeks after the podcast has aired, and after that, I'm not entirely sure. But once more, the code WPBuilds10 to get yourself 10% off Simple Feature Requests. I hope that you enjoy the show. Hello there, welcome to the WP Builds podcast. Thank you for making it to the interview. I am joined today by James Kemp. Hello, James.
Hello.
Hi, this is James and I. This is our first encounter. We've kind of met through Facebook Messenger on a number of occasions, but that's about it. So it's the first time we've spoken. I've got James on the podcast today because I want to give him a chance to talk about a plugin which I've bought from him, which I've used and really like. And whenever I buy something and I really like it, I think it's really nice to chat to the author and figure out why they did it and so on. We'll get to that in a moment, but a pretty banal question, if you don't mind, at the beginning, James. Just tell us a little bit about your background and journey and how you ended up fiddling around with WordPress plugins and so on.
Yeah. So I actually studied music technology at university. So I spent a lot of time in studios and music studios and producing music and things like that. Nice. And I started developing websites as a bit of a hobby, and it was in Flash at the time. When I left uni, there was nowhere to really work in the music industry. So I kind of focused more on the website stuff and managed to find a job which was far away from me at the time, but I kind of live in the Midlands now. And they hired me on a very low salary. And it was there that I kind of started working with WordPress. It was right at the beginning of when it started getting popular, I guess. It was around 2009. So I worked there for a couple of years, and then it was actually there that I made my first plugin for WordPress. And that was a plugin that allowed you to integrate Magento blocks into WordPress.
Oh, nice. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, so the sites that we built there, if we did e-commerce, we always used Magento. I think WooCommerce wasn't necessarily a thing at the time. It was probably Jigo Shop, and it was probably just starting, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So yeah, we used Magento a lot, and I built out this plugin that allowed you to bring blocks over, and the blocks would be things like, the navigation from the site or the mini cart. And it kind of allowed you to get your WordPress site and the Magento site looking similar.
Nice.
So a good way to kind of put your blog or a shop into merge them together.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember playing with Magento, well, building quite a few customer client sites on Magento, and it was the death of me on many occasions.
Oh, yeah. No, I sold that plugin eventually and never looked back.
Yeah, I kind of almost refused to go anywhere near e-commerce after my experiences with Magento. I could never seem to find the correct documentation for anything that I needed to achieve. But anyway, that's another story. Sorry, I interrupted. Carry on.
No, that's fine. So yeah, I built out that plugin as a free plugin and released it on the WordPress repository. And I decided to try and monetize it a little bit. So I built these kind of add-ons for it. Trying to remember what they actually did. It was quite a long time ago now. I know I had a single sign-on add-on. So if you log into Magento or WordPress, you would also log into the other platform.
Nice.
And I basically set up on Code Canyon, which is part of the Envato network.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time they would set the prices for you. So I think the plugins were between $10 and $15, essentially lifetime licenses.
Yeah.
And I did pretty well on there. So I left that job where I started learning WordPress. And I went out on my own. I set up a company with a friend, and we did a lot of web design. We're essentially a web design development agency. Mm-hmm. Did that for a couple of years, and during that time we would be building a lot of sites for clients, and we kind of transitioned, like I said earlier, to Jigo Shop, and then over to WooCommerce when that became a thing. And we would build these features for these customers, and they were built in a modular way that meant I could then release them, as plugins for other people to buy. So the first plugin I actually built for WooCommerce was a plugin called WooThumbs, and this was 2012, I think it was released.
Wow, right, way back, yeah.
Yeah. And again, I released it on Code Canyon, and I built up this portfolio on Code Canyon of like 3 Magento plugins from when I was doing Magento stuff. And then I think I probably had 10 WooCommerce plugins. And like I say, it was this WooThumbs plugin, and we had a Quick View plugin, and some other ones. And eventually decided to transition away from Code Canyon. This was probably 2017. I think I started in 2016 and finished moving everything away in 2017, to eventually sell only WooCommerce plugins on my primary site, which is now iconicwp.com, and that's what I do now full time.
So it's interesting because I've spoken to a few people who started on Code Canyon, well, Envato and, so on, selling themes and plugins and, little PHP snippets and things like that. And I was just wondering, was it a wholesome experience? Did you enjoy it? Or was it from the outside looking in, because I've never communicated with anybody that's running that platform or what have you, it sometimes feels like, a race to the bottom a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it. When I joined, it wasn't a massive thing. There wasn't that many authors on there. So I was actually an elite author on there by the time I left. So I never experienced the being at the bottom thing, because the bottom at the time is probably the same as the top is now. Yeah. You see what I mean?
Yeah. I think there was a lot of people who made a very healthy living out of seemingly, very, very modest little plugins or whatever that just did a small thing but did it really well. And it was kind of the go-to place, wasn't it? There didn't seem to be less people setting up their own shops and so on. I've certainly bought lots and lots of things off there over the years. But so you moved away, decided that you were going to just... So did you basically pull your stuff out of Code Canyon into Iconic WP? I'm just going to call it Iconic because that's the actual name, but the website, as you said, is iconicwp.com. Are you still selling the same stuff essentially that you had on Envato, but now under your own auspices?
Yeah. So we still have WooThumbs. We still have most of the same plugins that we sold on Code Canyon. WooThumbs is actually still one of our top sellers, which is interesting. So it's been 8 years since I built it. It's changed a lot since I initially released it. But yeah, we're selling the same products plus new products that we've built out.
It's a really, there's a pretty impressive lineup. I've just counted, and I'm assuming that everything that you have is on there. You've got 13 individual plugins, all handling a different aspect of interactions with Woo, and then you've got an option on there to sort of like bundle it all together. Is that right? Is the Iconic bundle, is that the entire lot?
Yeah, there's actually another plugin which I haven't published on the Iconic site yet.
Okay.
Which is Flux Checkout. We acquired it earlier this year. So at the moment it's only sold on fluxcheckout.com, and it's essentially a mobile-friendly checkout experience for WooCommerce, which is included in the Iconic bundle. And the Iconic bundle there's 3 different ones, and they kind of focus on different things. But the kind of key one is the All Access bundle, which gives you access to all of those plugins for 30 sites and at a much reduced price.
Yeah, really. Like, you essentially, by the time you've bought 3 of your other plugins, you're winning by buying the bundle, aren't you? And you get another 11 thrown in for the bargain as well. I mean, it absolutely handles everything. And I confess, I had not come across your stuff before. So it's really refreshing to come across a completely new and fully fledged out suite of things. So I'll just run through them for the sake of anybody listening who's not heard of Iconic and what they do. There's one called WooCommerce for single variations. Obviously, hopefully the name will propel you towards going to Iconic WP and looking at these. There's WooThumbs for WooCommerce, WooCommerce attribute swatches, Iconic sales booster for WooCommerce, WooCommerce delivery slots. Bet that's useful at the moment, actually. WooCommerce quick view, WooCommerce linked variations. I'm going to stop saying WooCommerce at the beginning of everything. Product configurator, wish list for WooCommerce, accounts pages, custom fields for variations, bundled products, quick tray. My word. There's everything in there. Wow, amazing that it hadn't sort of crossed my radar. Is it still a growing business? Are you sort of like, seeing an upswing, especially of late, what with all the COVID that's happened?
Yeah, definitely. We're growing year on year, and like you say, in the last 3 months, we've had our best months, and that's due to people buying the delivery slots plugin, like you
Yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah. I suspected
Um,
that would be the one.
that was probably our fourth highest seller normally, and it's overtaken everything by double.
Yeah. Well,
So that's doing really well.
yeah, so I mean, essentially, although the thrust of this podcast is not that, if you are into WooCommerce and you have not checked out Iconic, definitely go and check it out. I'll make sure to put a link in the show notes. But the reason that we've kind of segued and gone in that direction is to eventually pull ourselves around to the conversation that we're going to have. And that's because James decided that he needed customer feedback. He needed a bit more data on what people were wanting him to build in the future, I guess, or adaptations to the existing plugin and what have you. And so that brings us neatly to a different URL, and I'm going to ask you to go to simple feature requests, no hyphens, no nothing, just simplefeaturerequests.com. And over there you're going to find his WordPress feedback plugin. So am I right in saying that? Did you build this to scratch your own itch?
Yeah, 100%. I built it specifically for Iconic, and you can find it at iconicwp.com/feature requests. So you can imagine with 13 plus plugins that we've got, kind of maintaining a consistent list of feedback was starting to get quite tricky. So I looked at some of the options that were around. I know WooCommerce themselves use user voice. There's Canny. I can't think of any others off the top of my head, but they're all essentially SaaS based.
Yeah.
And they limit me or you in terms of customization. Mm-hmm. They don't necessarily fit in with the branding or flow of your own site. And the other thing is that you obviously don't own or, you can't manipulate any of that data that gets given to you via those systems. Mm. So I wanted to simplify it a bit and just make it essentially a custom post type on the WordPress site that I already had. And save myself the hassle of logging into some different app to see what people wanted and figure out how to make it look good. So yeah, I built out this plugin, and it's evolved since I initially built it. And you can add categories, different statuses for the feature requests, and so on. And it's styled around user voice. So it looks similar in the way that it presents itself to user voice.
Yeah. The reason that I've kind of stumbled across this is because I was looking for something, and I was in fact courting the idea of shelling out on a monthly basis for the SaaS platforms that you mentioned, and I was almost at the point of pulling the trigger. I can't remember which one I was looking at, but it was one of the two that you mentioned. But I've always want to do things like this on my own hardware. I'd rather have a WordPress plugin, if there is one, than pay for a SaaS app. And then for reasons I can't quite remember, I stumbled across yours in a Facebook group. It was maybe even you mentioning it. I can't remember. And off we went, and I purchased it and installed it on the website in question, which is over on AB Split Test. I think it's at /roadmap. There's basically no interaction on there yet because I'm still beginning that journey. But it's so simple. You basically upload the plugin. There's a couple of shortcodes. There's one page of documentation to read. I mean, there's maybe more documentation than that. But you bang a shortcode into one page and call it something and tell the plugin what that page is. And then there's another one if you want to use the kind of roadmap feature. And you're off to the races. It's pretty simple. The idea is that people get to the site and see a sort of filterable list of bits and pieces that your customers are wanting to give you information about. So tell us how it works. I mean, you designed it to look like this other system, User Voice. Is there a reason why it behaves that way? Did you figure that was the most intuitive set of UIs in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, WooCommerce use it, and loads of big companies use that, so it must be working. You'll find a lot of these feature request systems are all similar in the way they look. So there's not really any other way to make it look, if you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But yeah, it essentially means that if someone, I mean, the normal way that I would have requested, would have had some feedback from a customer is that they would email it in. And you'd either make a mental note of that, or perhaps you'd drop it into a spreadsheet. And the issue with that was that if someone else then comes in with the same request, you've got these, you've got two requests for the same thing, and you probably aren't combining those requests into a number of votes for a certain request.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing we do now is when someone emails in with a request, we say, yeah, that sounds great. Can you go and leave it on our request board? Or vote on this request where someone's already asked for the same thing. And the good thing that our plugin will then do is when I change the status of a request, so the default status when a request is submitted would be pending, which means no one except the admin of the site and the person who submitted the request can see it. So the admin can then go on and approve it, and they would set it to published, or one of the other statuses, which would be something along the lines of under review, started, completed, declined. I think there might be another one. It's probably just published, actually. So the good thing is that once it's published and other people come along and vote on that request, when you change the status of it, WordPress will email the author of the request and everyone that's voted on it, and it will say, hey, just to let you know, the request you voted on has updated its status to completed. Whereas previously, if you're doing it a manual way and you've got this spreadsheet of people leaving requests, and you don't necessarily store their email address. And if you do, you have to then compose an email to 20 people that says the same thing.
That's interesting. I'm just imagining a scenario here where, let's say, for example, that there are 8,000 people who are using my request system. I am, for some reason, suddenly enormously popular. And everybody has decided they want this one feature and has voted it up to the top. So there's 8,000 people who voted for this one feature, which then goes to, I don't know, completed. How are you sort of scheduling the emails out, or are they sort of going on a 10 at a time, or how does that work? I'm just thinking about the possible fun you could have sending out many emails.
Yeah, I mean, they're all queued up. So it uses a custom built queuing system, and they essentially then send out via cron.
Right.
So it should prevent any overloading of the server, but
yeah,
it's I've never seen a request with 8,000 votes.
Yeah,
but you do get hundreds. I mean, I've rarely seen a request that has 1,000 votes on it.
Yeah.
More likely, if you've got a fairly popular site, you're going to see 300 to 500. But yeah, you can also, it uses WP Mail, so if you set it up to work with an SMTP plugin, it'll use that to actually process and send the mail.
So there's the configuration options are in the settings. You've kept it really nice and light. But maybe we'll get onto the roadmap of the feature request plugin, which is an interesting one, a bit later. But so you rock up to the site, and right at the top where you install the shortcode, if you just go for the basic shortcode without any parameters put in, you get the full Monty. You get the whole setup. So you get a sidebar which contains the ability to create an account, register an account with an email or password, and also you've got the option to log in. You will also see the top feature requests with the most votes and a list of categories as well. And then you see what you might expect to see on such a thing. In the main area, you get a little box indicating how many votes something has received. That box also serves double duty as an area where you yourself can upvote. It's quite a nice thing that you've added into the plugin, whereby you can limit the amount of votes that one individual or one user account gets. Is there a reason for that? Because when I was playing with it, I set that up and I just arbitrarily thought, well, let's just give them 10. So that means that any individual user can spread those 10 votes out, and once they've reached that ceiling, they can no longer vote unless they remove a vote from something else. Why was that in? Is it just to stop people getting trigger happy?
In a way, I mean, it was actually a request, that one, that someone wanted to be able to do that. And the reasoning is that if you, for example, have 3 votes to leave on, 3 different requests, you're going to really carefully think about which 3 features are of most importance to you. So you get a better idea of what people's actual priorities are. If they could vote on everything, then you could have the same number of votes on every request, and it wouldn't really show the priority. People might see a request and think, oh yeah, that'd be good, click it, but they don't really care if that comes to the plugin or not.
Not having a site which is busy enough to worry about that, and also not being able to test it myself. What happens? Let's say that you've limited it to 3 votes, and I try to desperately click on a 4th thing. Is there something that pops up to tell me, you've used up your request? Either go and remove a vote off something else, or just live with it.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, they get a pop-up that says you don't have any more votes left, and you can either go back to, it doesn't say this, but you can either go back to a request that you voted on and click it again. It will unvote it, and then you can go and use that elsewhere.
Or just live with it.
Yeah, or like you say, deal with it.
So the capability to filter things is pretty nice. You've got the by default you're looking at kind of like the latest ones. Well, I presume that's the default because it's what I'm looking at on your website at the moment. And then there's the option to click a little button next to that which says top, and that then, as you might imagine, pushes the filtering such that the one with the most votes goes to the top. On your website currently, with 15 votes, conditional logic is the one that's is the most requested thing. And then you've got the option to filter by the status of it. So you want to only see things that have been completed or declined or under review. And then you've got an arbitrary set of categories that you can set up in the same exact way that you would set up WordPress categories. You can set up these so that, and then they appear as little badges, little with a nice little background color, just so they sort of stand out in the UI. And then once you've done your filtering and you've decided what it is that you want to click on, you then just click on it and you go to a single page which has got. Is it just normal WordPress comments you've got on there? You've got the actual thing itself. Who decided to share this? So in this case, it's got your little thumbnail image of your avatar, and then some open comments system.
Yeah, the comments will just inherit whatever your theme uses.
Yep. And so that's kind of how it works. And then if you go back, there's a breadcrumb, obviously, just to keep you on track. And then if you go back to, I don't know if that's part of the plugin, actually. I don't think it is it? That's probably just on your website. I'm not sure. Then if you go back to the main page, you can then start typing. And this is quite nice. I really like the way you've built this. If you start typing into the box where you can submit your own request, then all the other fields appear where you can basically give it a description, add a category, and then submit it. So what happens? What's the sort of journey that I would go through as in this case, let's say a plugin developer or theme owner or whatever it would be, and I'm receiving requests, and somebody comes to my website, types in a request. How does that workflow work? What do I need to do to make it appear on the website and give it the appropriate place on the website?
Yeah, so the flow would be the customer would come to your site, they would type into the search box, like you say, to start submitting their own request. And what that box does is it searches the existing requests to find any that are similar to what they're entering. And it gives you the choice. It says, you can either vote on one of these 5 requests, or you can continue and submit your own. And that kind of filters out one round of emails that you would usually get, where someone's emailing to request something that's already been requested. They can just find it in that list.
Nice. Yep.
Add their vote, and you don't hear from them other than having, the value from what they were trying to give to you, kind of silently added to your site. But if they choose to proceed and add a feature request, it essentially submits the request to you, and it creates a new post. It's obviously a custom post in the back end of WordPress, and it sets the status to pending. So when the user submits the request, they'll get redirected to the single request page, and it will say your request is pending. It will be accepted soon or declined. And you as an admin can then see this request. You'll get an email that says, someone submitted a request, and you can see this list of requests in the back end of your WordPress, much the same as if you were looking at a list of posts or pages on your site. So from there, you can either go into the individual request to edit it, and you can change the status in there. It's kind of on you whether you choose to publish it or decline it. You read whatever the person has submitted and make your decision. And at that point, it will then be visible to anyone who comes to the site, unless you declined it.
Right. Okay. And then in the sort of admin area, the typical WordPress admin area, it's exactly as you might expect. You can see if there's a comment count. You can see the number of votes. Is that field sortable? You can sort by. Yeah, it is. That's nice. See the status of it, and then obviously you can click in and fiddle with the post itself. Change its status or what have you. Are we able to? The status that it comes out the box with, or at least I believe this is the status that it comes out the box with, because I haven't fiddled with these. You've got, as you said earlier, you've got pending, published, under review, planned, started, completed, declined. Are you able to add or take away from those if they don't fit, or are they just hard coded into the plugin?
You can add to them, yeah. So when I built the plugin, I built it in a way that meant it could be very easily customized. So if you look at the code base of the plugin, there's a lot of filters and hooks that you can hook into. So yeah, you can hook in, you can add your own statuses. You can, change what the default status is. You can add your own taxonomies. So obviously by default, you can filter by category, but you could add any number of other taxonomies that you wanted. And yeah, there's loads of stuff like that. The whole templating system is based around hooks as well. So you can, remove any aspect of the template. You can move it or you can override it. So it's pretty flexible for developers.
Yeah, it does. The status sort of serves double duty, doesn't it, in some cases? Because obviously if it's pending, then it's pending and nothing's much is happening. Published, I presume, literally means that it's available to see on the website, but you're basically not giving it any, I'm not necessarily going to do it. I might not, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then you've got these other ones where you've got under review, planned, started, completed, and some of those tap into something which we haven't yet mentioned, which is that there's a kind of roadmap layout built into the plugin as well. So do you just want to tell us how these statuses affect the way that the roadmap looks, and in fact what the roadmap does look like?
Yeah, so the roadmap is essentially another shortcode that you can use, and it will let you list. The default is 3 columns, but you can list any number of columns, and each column reflects a status. So I think the columns by default are, I don't know if you can see it.
I'm going to quickly pull up mine and I'll tell you what I'm looking at as soon as I've done that. It is, okay, so, oh no, I've only got the started up, so that's all I can see.
I've got it up here.
Yeah.
So it's under review, planned, and started.
That's it.
So they're kind of the 3 stages. So under review would mean that you're, assessing this request, deciding whether it's worthy of adding, how you might add it. And then once you've decided that, yeah, we are going to add this, you can add it you can change the status to planned. And then obviously once it gets to the time that you're going to start developing it, you can change it to started. So by default, you've got those 3 columns, and it essentially gives people or customers the chance to have a quick overview of where your product is heading, whether the features that they're looking for are going to be added into the product. And yeah, again, is a method of reducing the number of requests that you might get asking the same thing, where you could just present this information to your customer and have them see it without, it saves them the hassle of sending you an email, and it saves you the hassle of responding to the same email over and over again.
It's interesting. Whenever I find myself accidentally lurking around in places like AppSumo, which you may or may not have come across, this is the thing that everybody wants to know. They're really desperately keen to see, well, obviously in a lifetime deal scenario, they're wanting to see what future value the product has for them. But the ability to see the roadmap is really on the top of everybody's minds, it would seem. They want to see this, and your plugin just completely auto creates it based upon, well, by default, the 3 categories that you've just highlighted.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely a popular thing that people want to see. And as well, if you get a message that says, what are you planning to add to the plugin, you can just direct them to this page.
Yeah, I find more and more that people are putting these kind of things in the footer of the website, along with, the copyright notice and so on and so forth. There it is, the affiliate link and the link to the roadmap or the feedback. That's certainly what I've done. I've just put a roadmap, just called it /roadmap and /feedback, I think it is, on our site for the feedback and the roadmap respectively. Are there any customization options? So you mentioned that you can, if you are prepared to dig in a little bit and fiddle with WordPress hooks and so on and so forth, you can do that. Do you have any customization options in there? So for example, can you make it look like the site? Does it just inherit things that come out of the theme? Or are there options to, change font colors, font sizes, the way the backgrounds of certain things look? Or indeed, if they're not there, are they on your roadmap?
So the plugin will inherit your site styles mostly. So we inherit, the font family, the sizing of headings, link colors and things like that. The actual layout of it is all predefined, and the reason I do that is to avoid overloading people with too many options. What I would potentially do in the future is to add different themes that is, predefined layouts, rather than allowing people to customize every individual part of it from the settings. If you did want to customize it all, then the option is there to do it via code, but I don't think I would ever add that that level of fine-grained detail to the settings.
One of the things that when I look at these roadmaps, the word that comes into my mind is like Kanban. They've got this kind of like channels, lanes, whatever the right word for that is. And one of the things that I'm used to doing on things like Trello and what have you is, as a logged in user, I'm kind of used to being able to say I want to move that from started over to completed with the mouse, sort of clicking and dragging. At the moment, you've got to actually log into the task and change the category and so on. Again, there's just interest from my part whether that's the sort of thing you are thinking of doing or no.
It's never been mentioned before, but it's definitely a cool concept. Yeah, that would be really cool to see. I guess the thing we'd want to try and avoid is having this, that level of customization on the front end. I would have thought.
Yeah, but also you're depending on how many things are on your roadmap, how many of those channels you've got. It doesn't actually cover all the categories necessarily anyway, so it may just end up confusing you. Where's that one gone, or just disappeared. It's a really, really sweet plugin. It does this one thing which we've obviously tried to outline. It'll get you feedback from your customers without you having to interact with them too much. And hopefully it will alert them to stuff which has already been requested, again, avoiding you the headache of having to do that via email. And then it will show it on a nice handy roadmap, which, as I said, seems to be at the top of everybody's minds when they're investing in something. What's the pricing model that you've got on this then?
So we do have a free version of the plugin, which is on WordPress.org, and it's you get a working feature request board, but it's limited in features, so you don't get the categories. You don't get some of the bulk update stuff that you can do in terms of updating multiple requests at the same time. So if you want all of the pro features, it's $79 a year, which is, a lot cheaper than what you'd find for any SaaS style product that offers the same thing.
Yeah, it really is. I was really quite surprised at how expensive the SaaS ones were per month.
Yeah, I mean,
considering what it does. Yeah,
shows the value of getting feedback.
Yeah, indeed. So $79 pro. Is there a limitation on the number of websites you can put that on, or is that just $79? Put it as where
that is a single site license. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't added it to the site yet, but there is a multi-site. There is multi-site pricing available. But I've found that most people that use this have one product in mind for it.
And as you may well expect, it is being used upon itself, which is very bizarre. James is using his plugin to find feature requests about the plugin in question, which is just really, really intriguing. As
Inception.
I said, yeah, exactly. God, that was the word I was looking for. So you can go and check it out. You'll be able to instantly see. So if you go to simplefeaturerequest.com/, and then just click feature requests in the main menu at the top, you'll see the layout as we've been trying to describe it. And then next to it, if you click roadmap, you'll see that Kanban board layout, which inherits the status that you give it. And there's a documentation page as well. As James said, $79 per year for a single site license. It's great, until you've started doing stuff like this and needing feature requests, you kind of assume that you can get away with email until one day I think you realize this is just a mess. I need something much more automated. And so this will do the job nicely. James, sadly, we're out of time. Before we knock it on the head, though, is there anything you would feel that we left out, or maybe a URL that you want to plug, something else that you're up to, anything? The floor is yours.
There's a couple of things in terms of this product about what's coming to the plugin in the future. So we're working on adding guest voting. So at the moment you have to have an account to be able to leave a request or vote on a request. We're also working on the ability to have multiple boards. So you could have a feature request board for a specific product. So on Iconic, for example, I could have a board for each plugin that we offer on Iconic. And the other thing is more for the admin, where we would offer some more reporting options, and the ability to kind of give each request a value and the amount of time that it would take you to develop that, so you can get a more statistical understanding of what would be best to prioritize.
Oh, nice. So the roadmap for the roadmap is really good. Yeah, really nice. Well, really, really good. You've got some things on the website under review at the moment. Add option to display users' remaining votes. There you go. Dark mode and allow users to downvote. Ooh, controversial. Allow users to downvote a request. There you go. That's interesting. So there you have it. Simplefeaturerequests.com. There'll be links in the show notes to everything that we've talked about. But James, thanks for joining us so much today.
Thanks for having me. It's been good.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed that. Always very nice to chat to talented developers such as James doing fun things in WordPress. Go over to the show notes at wpbuilds.com, search for this episode. It's episode number 209. There's an archive in the menu at the top, and you'll be able to find all of the links to the products and services mentioned in this episode, namely Iconic WP and Simple Feature Requests. The WP Builds podcast was brought to you today by A/B Split Test. Do you want to set up your A/B split test in record time? The new A/B split test plugin for WordPress will have you up and running in a couple of minutes. You can use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything really. And the best part is it works with Elementor, Beaver Builder and the WordPress block editor. Check it out and get a free demo at absplittest.com. Okay, we will be back next Thursday. It'll be a discussion or a debate or something similar like that between David Wormsley and I. But also on Tuesday, join us at 2 p.m. UK time, wpbuilds.com/live for This Week in WordPress. And also look out for the newsletter that will be coming out on Tuesday, which will cover the posts that we cover in that live. You can subscribe and find out more about all of this at wpbuilds.com/subscribe. Okay, that's almost it. Only one thing left to do, as usual. I'm going to fade in some cheesy music and say bye-bye for now.